Hi everyone, Kim Watson here today with a new process video for the Hip Kit Club YouTube channel. Today I'm going to share a process video for a page that I did using the gorgeous July mixed media add-on kit as well as the main kit. And I'm going to explain my process using these fantastic liquid watercolor paints that came from Pinkfresh Studio. Let's get started. So as you can see, what I'm doing here is adding a really nice well distributed layer of gesso. What I'm doing is making sure that it's not too thick, because if it's nice and thinly applied and evenly applied, it'll dry really quickly and obviously minimize the warping on the background cardstock. Now this background cardstock is from Basil Basics. Kimberly includes some of these heavier qualities in the cardstock add-ons because she knows that obviously a lot of us like to add mixed media to our pages, which is really thoughtful. Now what you'll see, what I'm doing is adding a few drops of the fantastic yellow shade of the liquid watercolors. Now to activate this paint, I've just used a regular inexpensive spray bottle with tap water in it, and what I'm doing is literally spritzing layers of water onto the ink puddle, onto the paint puddle, and then tilting the page both backwards and forwards to cause a dripping effect, which is what I'm after. Now the reason that I'm doing this as opposed to using a brush is it just gives me obviously a different look. And secondly, it gives me a more organic finish, which is what I'm looking for this page. Now, because this cardstock is such a really great quality, you don't have to be worried about adding too much water, because the warping you'll find at the end of the page is absolutely minimal. So you can really get loose and add a lot of mixed media without fear of damaging that background page. The tapping motion just causes gravity to pull that ink further down so that I don't have a long waiting process. Also, it then ensures that the paint runs in the direction that I'm hoping it will go, so it doesn't have to be left up to chance. Now what you'll notice, what I did there with the heat gun is I made sure that it was fully heated up before I began to add heat to the page. I find this definitely minimizes warping. Then of course, if you turn the page over and dry the back of the paper as well as the front of the paper, you get a nice even ratio of heat to the paper, so again minimizes warping, which I know in the past, unless you stretch it properly with gum tape, it's very hard to eliminate completely. But I've just found that this trick definitely minimizes the damage, so it's something that's worth trying. Now I've got the really great yellow puddle happening on the page, but decided that paint needed a little more interest and intensity of color, so mixed up a lime green paint, which is a mixture of the Shimmers Blue, which came in last month's kit, together with some of the yellow liquid watercolor. Now applying it with a brush, just make sure that it goes where I want it to go, but the organic feel and the great blending happens from the addition of the misting with water. Now obviously, because I still have the puddle of the lime green paint available on my piece of packaging, it then works really well if you just load up your paintbrush with that liquid paint and splatter it onto the paper, giving you that gorgeous splattered effect. Obviously, because the colors are beautifully coordinated, you're getting a nice well-rounded mixture of colors on your background. Look how well they dry. I love the fact that these paints dry with darker edges. It just gives it a really authentic watercolor vibe. Here, what I'm doing is just rolling the paper backwards and forwards to make sure that it's as straight as possible before I start adding elements. Now what you'll see I'm doing here is I'm playing around with layering frames. These cardstock frames came as part of a pack from my collection that I designed, Savannah Dreams, for Pretty Little Studio. I love the fact that the colors are very unisex in terms of the fact that they are graphic blacks and whites, there are blues and greens and limes, and of course I'm looking for an obviously male color palette, even though this acidic color palette will work across the board. It's not gender specific. So yeah, I just find that by limiting my color palette, I get a much more sophisticated overall page design, as opposed to using every color under the sun. Obviously, if it is a rainbow paper, then that is a rainbow vibe, that is a completely different scenario. But today I'm going to stick to a limited color palette. Now what I'm doing here is just using the tablet to double check which products came as part of the main kit, which is my focus today for this project. So yes, I'm using some of the mixed media inks, but the rest of the embellishments literally came from the main Hip Kit Club July kits. In that kit, there were sheets of exclusive washi tape pieces designed by the ever-talented Kimberly Hutchinson, who incidentally is the owner of Hip Kit Club Kits. She is multi-talented, that lady. So not only does she run one of the best kit companies on the planet, not that I'm biased or anything, but she's also really creative. So those exclusive products definitely give Hip Kit Club kits a lovely edge and angle that you might not necessarily find in other kits out there. But now that my little plug is over, let's get back to this process. The quality of this washi tape is particularly good. So what it does is it allows me to tear the strips into further little tiny pieces. These little jagged strips are are now becoming part of my background design. I was looking for a loose, artsy, grungy vibe, and I really enjoy black and white sort of painterly patterns, so this combination of black and white dots really works for me. What you'll find later on is I'm going to add further interest to those washi tape strips by adding different types of machine stitching, but you'll see that in a little while. Now that patchwork paper was also part of Savannah Dreams for Pretty Little Studio. And the great thing about it is that the patterns not only are small and minimal, but they're also in the same colors that I have decided to use for this page. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting it up into the little patchwork squares and then loosely layering them underneath each other to get a sort of, it's not really patchwork, but a layered vibe, which is where I'm going with this design. Also, never be afraid to use those pieces which are notched off at the end and not whole squares. Being layered, they can just be laid underneath something, and then of course the cut-off edge is easily hidden by other elements. In that way, I just minimize the wastage, because I hate wasting bits. It seems so tragic that you have a little bit cut off and then it ends in the dustbin. So yeah, this type of layout is great. It uses up all those extra little bits that you might have lying on your table. As you probably noticed, I'm sticking to a vertical design throughout this page. I have very obvious vertical lines which I'm going to stick to. Sometimes I find that having a very specific design element, like either a horizontal placement or vertical placement, helps to just create balance within the overall design. That sheet of cute stickers is also from my Savannah Dreams collection. Again, not biased, haha, I totally am. But yeah, it was very nice of Kimberly to include them in the Hip Kit Club kits, and of course they coordinate really well with what I'm doing here. The colors are right. It's got the nice playful vibes, so yeah. Now that sheet of enamel badges were exclusive to the July Hip Kit Club kits, and I must tell you, they are fabulous. They're so great to add to a page. They add understated bling with their glossy surface, and of course by adding foam adhesive to the underneath side, it raises them even further off the page, which really contributes towards the texture and dimension, of course, which really makes a page interesting. There's something so nice about shadows that are created by raising the layers to different heights. I know if you've watched some of my previous process videos, I talk about that a lot. So sorry for the repeat, folks, but I obviously do it a fair amount in my pages, so I'm bound to talk about it multiple times. So I apologize in advance. You know, the nice thing is about these Hip Kit Club kits is that they're absolutely jammed full of product. You know, there's never a situation where I'm thinking, oh, best I go easy on the embellishments, there isn't enough, I've still got to make like another 4 pages this month, or whatever it is, and oh, I might run out of embellishments or stickers or alphas, but you know, it never happens. Hip Kit Club kits are so generously full of product that I find I have more than enough to be generous on my pages. So it is really nice when you have something that you're really feeling, like those enamel badges. I don't have to worry about only using 1 per page. You know, as it turns out, I ended up using 4 of them on 1 page, and they just become like a dominant accent and really help in terms of like the overall design balance. So yeah, here what I'm doing is just going through all again the exclusive little ephemera die cuts which came as part of the July kits. You know, because there's such a great variety of colors, I'm finding that there is no I don't have a worry at all about finding things to coordinate. There is just plenty of variety and plenty of choice available, so I can find exactly what I need to finish off the embellishing of this page nicely. Now what I'm doing is I'm adding my sort of interactive title. Now those alphas that you can see, they are also exclusive to the July Hip Kit Club kits, and I must tell you, they are amazing. I love the fact that the quality is excellent, the colors are great, and of course having some coordinating teeny tiny little baby ones to coordinate with the bigger ones is awesome. The colors are great. It's great to make sentences, sentiments, little titles, big titles. I am so in love with those little baby puffy sticker alphas. I could have them in every color. I really could. Actually, I could have them in every kit. So yeah, Kimberly, if you're watching this video, that was a major hint. More mini alphas, please. They are really, really cool to work with. Hey, and here what I've noticed is the page is done. Obviously I didn't show you my sewing process because it's impossible to film that, but I then went to my sewing machine and using just plain thread and a variety of stitches, added rows of vertical stitching along the same lines as both the washi tape and the alphas, adding to not only the overall vibe that I'm trying to create, but to my very strong vertical lines within the page. Black splatter obviously is also a fantastic way of adding a last little bit of contrast, so I did that and I'm really happy with the overall effect. Now what I'm doing is adding some journaling. It's always great to add a thought, a sentiment, a moment, something to the pages. You know, I was thinking about it earlier in that a lot of my scrapbook pages are more about the artistic process than the actual memory that I am capturing, which is terrible. And I know that I fall prey to that, especially working for other companies. But what I do admit, I do go back after the projects have been released, and I add an envelope to the back of the pages, and then in that envelope I then write extra journaling to then tell the story behind the scenes. It's really nice for the family to go back at a later stage and read through those stories and have a laugh, in terms of finding out exactly what was going on in the moment that is included in the page. So it's just a tip that I've learned over the years. Never be limited to the space that you've left on your page for journaling. You can always add the extra journaling and keep it private if necessary on the back of your page. So a little helpful tip. I'm so full of helpful tips today. Anyway, so yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed my process. I've really enjoyed showing you my page. Here are some close-ups to get in close on the detailing and the layering. You can see how fantastic layering is, obviously, to create lots of interest in a page like this. So thank you again for joining me. Remember to pop over to hipkitclub.net and grab a subscription. You won't be sorry. Until next time, thanks guys. Bye-bye.